Welcome to Croptoberfest, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We have a lot of project to work on. I am Tessa outside Indianapolis, Indiana, and Megan will be joining us out from Seattle, Washington. So today we're working on Croptoberfest, and we're going to overview kind of what that means. There was a project recipe kit, there's a customer bundle. There were laser papers. The laser papers sold out for a while. Not all of us have laser papers. I still don't have any laser papers. So we have some alternative options for you for that. So before we begin anything, I'm going to kind of overview what the projects are so that whether you're following along, you're watching the video, you're cutting or not, you kind of know what we have in front of us. So we can flip down to my table here. There we go. So the project recipe kit. So this is a freestanding kit. You could buy it alone. And it also came in the customer bundle. And this kit is going to create two layouts. And I have those here to show you. Actually, it's not this one. I have them over here to show you. So in your email today, you also got a handout that says alternative version. So we're going to review this. So the laser paper sold out so fast, and I knew I was having my retreat before they were going to come back into stock, and I had more orders than laser papers. And so I went through and adapted the project bundle, if you got the customer bundle, without using the laser. So this handout is in your email today, and so you will have a choice. You can create the project recipe as is, and we're actually going to make it as is today. On the first page of my handouts, if you look, it's just an option for an alternative cuts in the project recipe, and I'll show you. This has nothing to do with the bundle, but if you want to save some of that brown paper, those of you that have followed us over time are used to us sometimes making kind of those U-frame cuts to get some paper out that you're not going to see. And so the front page of this handout is just kind of talks about that. It's going to offer two alternatives, which I'll talk about again. And the rest of this handout is some changes to the project cutting guide and then how those layouts look. So for the project recipe, that's the first part we're going to be doing. Before you make the cuts with me, or actually before you adhere it, you can look over this and decide if you want to save some of this pretty brown paper, and you can add a little bit of cut in there accordingly. And then we have the project booklet. And so the booklet came with the rest of the kit, which were the accessory paper pack, the mini embellishments, the laser papers, and then the booklet to create a couple of two-page layouts. You had a couple of pages with the laser papers, and then it offered two borders at the back. Without the laser papers, and a synopsis of what my project booklet adaptation is using the paper that was meant for the lasers, the papers for the borders, and I basically combined it all into one layout at the end. So that's kind of those. Let me show you what the projects are. So for the project recipe kit that we're going to work first, this is layout number 1. The original layout that's shows you navy mats, I believe, but I really like this brown paper. Oh, wait, I'm not even on that right. This is the first one. And it used the brown as the base paper. And you're going to see I cut out the back of it and I paper welded kind of the inserts into it so I could have that brown paper to use as mats. If you decide you don't want to do that, it's too complicated, you have navy in your kit. If you want to use the navy, you can. If you don't use the navy, you can kick that sheet of navy forward into the project bundle so you have more paper for mats. And that's why you see brown mats on these project recipe layouts, is because I cut that out. So that will be one alternative. So those will be the first two layouts. And then we get into the project booklet, and Megan is going to make it as is because she does have laser papers. This is the first layout. Whether you cut mine or my way or her way, you end up pretty much with the same thing. The second layout incorporated one of the laser papers over on this side. I adapted that a little bit. I swapped in the blue cardstock. I think she is too. Neither of us were fans of the tangerine, but this looks pretty similar to the layouts in the booklet. So in the project booklet, you see this 2-page spread, project number 2. It has that tree frame. This is what I created out of that. I got a little owl happy. I added in my branch and border punch, but we'll talk about using the decorative trimmer for that. So if you don't have laser papers, this is an option. And then the third, like I said, they had 2 separate layouts for the laser papers and then the border. So I had all of that extra stuff left over and I came out with these layouts. So if you know, look at the borders, it's pretty similar. I basically took the border concepts, I took the base paper from the lasers and made it a layout. Even if you decide to do it my way later, you could always get an extra pack of the accessory paper and go back and pretty much do the same thing with the laser papers if you want to. So those are kind of an overview of the layouts as you could adapt them. So what does that mean as you choose? When Meggan does her cutting, most of it is pretty similar. The only differences are they have some pieces not used, and I kind of changed how that was used. Sometimes it's easier to cut all at once. Even if you work along with her, you might end up with some of the same leftovers. And then she's going to work through, we're going to keep the owls to the end. And so you'll have all these extra pieces too that the owls came out of. So hopefully that makes sense. We'll talk about it more. If you don't have the branch punch is old, it's a 12-inch decorative trimmer. So the wavy or the swell edges, I will show you at the end that you can use for making the branch layout, the branches for the owls to sit on. Anything, and you could even hand cut some sort of branch or something like that. Okay, so any particular questions on choosing the project? So if you have the laser, you'll be able to work right along with Meggan. And if you don't, then you can wait to cut and just watch along and then do my cutting, which I'll show again a little bit at the end. So we're going to start with the project recipe kit. There's a cutting guide, and then you have the 2 handouts. You have navy and white cardstock. We have the forest and owl paper. So that's kind of this light blue one. It has a little owl sitting up in the trees. We have 2 of those. We have the owl scene, which is kind of the white based one. There's 2 sheets of that. And then we have this brown, the brown paper bases. These are the base papers for the spread number 1. So that's why if you choose to do the alternative, you're going to cut a frame out of these and push that forward. So to start out, we're going to do our cuts. So you just need a 12-inch trimmer. Set my paper up here. If you want my alternative, it's in the email that went out yesterday. There's a link in there and we will send it out again. So the first cut, I'm gonna grab a sheet of the forest and owl paper. So one that looks like this, the back of it is a navy owls and leaves. And the first cut that we have to make, if you're looking at your handout, down here is piece number E. We actually have to turn our paper to cut that before we do the cutting horizontally. So I'm going to rotate this so it is horizontal, and I'm going to cut 1.5 inches. And I'm going to rotate my paper back around, and then I can make this skinny cut. One thing that's confusing a little bit is it's hard to make this skinny cut first. On this side, your paper would be hanging off the edge over here. We have to make that 1/2 inch cut, and then we have 2 5 3/4. I'm going to flip my paper over so I can go ahead and do that 1/2 inch cut over here. Double check myself since I'm talking at the same time. 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. And then 5 3/4. So I do need to swing my arm up a little bit to get that 5 3/4 up here. So that gives me 5 3/4, 2 pieces. I'm going to go back to that little 1/2 inch strip. I need to cut that in half. And so half of that is 5 1/4. You can find the middle and use scissors, or you can use your trimmer. So those are the pieces for our first sheet of the force and out. I kind of have them in a pile over here to the side. Now I'm going to grab a sheet of my white cardstock. These have pretty easy cuts. We just need 2 pieces that are 5 1/2 by 10 1/2. So I'm going to cut off 1 1/2 inch off one side. I'm going to turn it. And I know if I need 5 1/2 and I need 5 1/2, that's 11 inches total wide. So I know that this extra piece they didn't label right here, that's 1 inch. So I'm going to cut off 1 inch. These white pieces are extra. You can set them off into a different pile. You don't need those again. And I'm going to cut this one in half at 5 1/2. So if you have our trimmer, that 5 1/2 mark really is right down the side of the trimmer. If you open your arm, you can see the black line barely peeking out under the edge of the side. I'm going to stack these up on my pile up here. And then I need a sheet of the owl scene. I have my owls, so they're, the piece looks correct to me. It looks like the owls are, sitting. I'm going to cut off a 1 inch. When you see on the cutting guide, it says reverse. That means that when we do the actual layout, you're going to see the reverse side of that print. So it's a 1 inch piece, but when we put that together, we're going to be seeing that other side. And then what we have left is we want to cut in half at 5 1/2 by 12. So we already have their 12 inches. So it's 5 1/2 again. Same as that line right down there, down the edge of the trimmer. So we have 2 5 1/2 inch pieces. The next sheet is the navy cardstock. This is the step you can skip if you don't like to cut your mats before you actually have photos, or if you're going to go back and you're watching this and you're going to U-frame out the inside pieces of the plaid to use and you're going to push this navy forward, then just don't cut that. You can skip your mats. For the purposes of everyone being able to see where they go on the layout, I'll go ahead and cut mine. So these are just 4 by 6. If you're just watching, let me know. How many of you guys like to have the mats cut as is, or do you wait until you actually have your photos? That's all the cutting that we have to do, and then we would start putting our pieces together. I am going to show you how I cut out one of the U-frames for those of you that do want to do that option. So if you look here on spread number 1, our first instruction is to use the 2 sheets of the plaid designer paper for your bases. So this is where my adaptation comes in. I want to cut those out as U-frames. So if you follow Meggan and I, you know the binder clip techniques, cutting out the inside of those. And I'm going to cut out a 1 1/2 inch U-frame. So when I want to cut 1 1/2 inches here in the trimmer, I have the white line here that tells me where my blade is going in. I have a ruler over here on the side, and I know I want 1 1/2. So I want that white line lined up on the 1 1/2 inch mark. I put my binder clip so that it will stop there. And then at the bottom, I'm going to do the same thing. So I have 12 inches. I want 1 1/2 inch frame. I can come up here and mark that. So again, it's a 1.5 inch frame. So I'm lining up with my 1.5 inch over here. So I have the side piece of that frame. I'm not going to rotate this. I'm going to line it up at 1.5. I'm doing a U, which means I can come off the end of one paper. I'm not doing a full frame. I'm just going to cut that down the edge, flip it over. And I have the other side. If for some reason your trimmer doesn't quite get there, you can always use scissors. Give yourself just that tiny little snip. So that gives me the U piece. And then I have all this extra pretty brown paper to use for mats on the layout or maybe something else. So we don't see this paper anywhere else. So I wanted to save it. You know, if this was just navy cardstock or maybe something I can easily get more of, I wouldn't go through the effort, but I did like having this paper pulled out. So that's how you do the U frame piece. So I'm going to do one as is, and then I have that U frame piece. So I'll show both. So we're moving on. We're working through our spread number 1. We have our 2 base papers, and we already did our cuts. And so now we're just adhering our pieces. So you want to look at the pictures, and we're getting these 5.5 inch pieces. So we have the 2 from the owl scene, and then we have the 2 white. Before I adhere anything, I'm going to lay them out. So if you're working as is, if you didn't cut out your extra paper, we're adhering these straight onto the base paper. About 3/4 up from the bottom and from the top. So they're going to sit like that side by side. If in your cutting, if you have any variation with the difference in length, sometimes, you know, we just get off by hair and they're not quite the same. You want to make sure that the top is even, because along the bottom, if you are uneven, this is going to get covered with a border sticker. So you can cover up any discrepancy in measuring down here at the bottom. Okay, so how do you do this side? If you did the U frame, how do we put this together? Very similarly, although I would suggest maybe using a mini tape runner if you have it, or the repo. And if I'm going to put some adhesive along here, because that's where I'm going to adhere, if you have mini tape or repo tape, you guys know me, I have a lifetime supply of old mini tape. I'm going to make sure I'm lined up on my cutting mat. And I'm going to adhere the outside piece first. So it's the same concept. It's still 3/4 inches. I'm going to cover up that hole. Going right down the edge. And put some repo down that edge. And I'm going to line this one up beside it. And that gives me that base paper. So easy enough, right? This does end up being a little bit floppier. So if you want to add some support to your page, I'm just going to do a quick paper wheel down the back of it. Remember, I had you set aside those extra white card strips that we didn't use, that we're not going to use. These are great. I'm gonna put some adhesive down one of it. I'm just giving myself a little bit of a support beam down the back of the layout. So you have two in case you did both, and that gives me a little bit extra strength on that paper until I'm ready to slide it into my book. Then if you're ready, you can grab your stickers. So we have our border stickers, and they're going to go down here along the entire length of the bottom. Just start towards one end, just move your way along a little bit slowly. Get it all the way out there. Looks like in the chat, it's kind of split how many cut their mats ahead of time and how many wait. So in the final layout, they're suggesting that you put photos down here. This is why this looks so white and open. They suggest 5x3 photos. And then we have room for 2 navy mats out here. Or if you have the brown, I do have the cut on my handout, I suggest. From the remaining, it's a 4x9. No, wait, make sure. So for the inner frame piece, I have it. You have a 9x6.5 inch rectangle, and then you can cut that in half to make 4.5x6.5 mats. The reason why there's 2 pictures on here is because originally I cut one as a frame and the other one I did as a U. I changed my mind during it. So that gives me 4.5x6.5 mats, which you can see would mat nicely behind the navy, or I could just put 4x6 photos on those. And then these other 2, I think I popped on the other layout, they would fit they're 4.5x4, so it would fit like a 4x3 and 3/4 photo. And then we should have your mini embellishments. If you want to embellish, I'll show you which ones that they pulled out. You have your little mini embellishment pack. They have a bunch of stickers on here too. You have your sticker strip and you have your mini embellishments. Up here on this side, I'll go ahead and put my mat down so it looks like the picture. It looks like they chose the love sticker. A little bit of foliage. For those of you close to creating memories, if you notice on the project recipe, the couple in the pictures, there's a couple with the baby. That is actually Allison Dutton, our CEO, and that's her firstborn. I think her name's Taylor. So those photos are several years old, but we've seen them quite a few times now on our fall layouts because they turned out so well. And there's a little leaf sticker you can stick there at the bottom corner. Over here, they have another navy mat. Over here, you have kind of this open spot where there's not as many tree trunks. They do suggest journaling down there if you're one who can handle journaling directly on the paper. Their little owl. Tuck him down in there and accent your corners. Some hearts. Yeah, it looks like this one was all stickers, so I guess we don't need the embellishments for this one. So this is layout spread number 1. So you have room here for 3 photos and then photos over here on each side. So we're going to put together the second set. So we have 2 sheets of base paper left. So one of them is navy owls and leaves. So when I first looked at this paper, I feel like it's an I Spy. I did not even see the owls for the longest time. They're kind of hidden in here. I'm curious, did anybody even realize did you guys realize there's even owls on this print? They're so subtle in there. But we're going to use this one for our left side. And the right side, we're going to use the tan leaves. And then we're going to piece together our other long strips. So you have the owl scene for both sides, and then we should have our two other strips. I know when we put this together over the weekend, some people were looking for, it's kind of misleading on here, which one is the base paper, because you're basically just creating a layer effect across all of them. So we have the 1.5" navy owls over here, our owl scene, the tan leaves over here, and the owls over here. One option too, if you want to add any interest, you're welcome to use a decorative blade. Maybe at this point you can do straight cuts. Megan prefers straight cuts. I like to throw in my decorative blade sometimes just for a little bit of interest. This is an easy place to do it. Those of you that have all of our blades might like an excuse to pull them out. You could just run down the edges. This one's the decal, so it's just a little bit of a subtlety. It just shows that it's kind of like a little bit of a torn effect down the side. So an option for customization if you want to. Otherwise, we're going to layer these pieces starting from the outside edge. I'm going to go ahead and do the same over here just because I have it on one side now. And then again, adhere from the outside in. I'm just doing a slight overlap because I do have that edge. If you have a straight edge, you can just butt them up next to each other. And there you have your main base. So I can grab, so you should have these 2 little strips left. And then we have our photo mats. So we have the navy that we cut if you went ahead and cut. The brown, if you did use the brown, they look nice on this layout also. Layer those in here. We want to do a little banner cut on the ends of our short strip. So if you have your micro tip scissors, we're just going to do a little banner cut. So just kind of make a cut into the center on one end, flip it over, meet your cut in the middle. And that gives you that tiny little delicate banner cut that they were showing. The micro tip are a little bit more fine tuned into those cuts. You can use the larger scissors. I find if I do my bigger scissors, if this is the size you have, I tend to cut farther back onto the blades. It's hard for my tip to get as fine. So sometimes I just come out here. So I'm not really pushing them down all the way. Kind of using that back leverage. So now we can adhere our mats. When you do adhere this piece up here, give yourself a little inch or so. We are going to overhang our title down. So we want some layering space underneath that. This layout really gives you lots of room for photos if you're not using the prescribed mat sizes. Move them around. I really enjoyed this kit. I like the colors. I thought the prints looked well together. I need to, I think some of you have attended Power Hour last summer. You may have heard about my owl stories at one of the parks I would walk at. I was stalking the baby owls in the evenings. And so I need to go print those photos because that's what's going to go on my owl layouts. It was summer, not winter, but there are evergreen trees out there. So I think I can get away with summer, not fall photos. Okay, now I'm going to pull out some of my embellishments. I really like the embellishment back too. I thought it was a good mix of little tags, trees, owls. I'm looking for, or maybe it was a sticker. This is what I'm really confusing you. I'm confusing me too. The embellishments are for the project kit. We're not using these yet.
Yeah,
my goodness.
The stickers are all used for the project recipe.
I've touched
Well,
that
not
project
all of
kit
the
too many
stickers.
times. Yeah, these are all stickers. I'm sorry. I've worked in that bundle so much now that it's all blurred to me, like it should all be the same. Okay, here we go. So this is the little brown title that they show. It says thankful for this. I know we want that one. I'm just so excited about the mini embellishments. I want to put them everywhere. And then they have the owl. They have this owl, and they're showing some leaves also. And we're going to layer these. I'm going to start by putting the leaves to the side. They do have a little piece in there you have to make sure you get pulled out. And I want my thankful for this tag. I want to be able to see blue through the holes. It has some holes as if it's a tag, and I want to see the blue behind it. I'm putting it down towards the bottom of that paper because I want to make sure my owl can sit on top of it. Layered like that. And then they do show the little heart kind of out there too. And down here, but I didn't mention it to Megan, but she figured it out too. When they made this kit, they obviously made it digitally because down here in the corner, they show the leaves in a reverse orientation than our stickers actually are. So they obviously flipped that digitally. So you won't be able to have the same exact spray of leaves, but obviously it's close enough. You probably would never have noticed if I didn't point it out to you. And then have my other owl sitting beside those. And you do still have some extra stickers that you can go piece through, and they have some room for journaling up here. These moments you can put after you mat your photos if you want. It was a nice little sweet collection. You do end up with extra embellishments, so you can circle back around and put some of the embellishments on these layouts too if you want, even though in my excitement. I kept trying to use them and they're not. So this is spread number 2. So any questions about the project recipe kit itself or the option for the U-frame if you want, if you're watching this and creating it later? They are very sweet. Tell some of you are working away doing them. Well, that was just the warm up. It was pretty easy warm up because Megan's going to take us into the project booklet. So if you're done with these or your extra pieces, you can kind of package it all up to the side. Really start fresh with that bundle. You might want to keep these instructions because these are pretty basic cuts. It's easy to adapt this to another paper pack. So we used 2 sheets of cardstock. You had 6 sheets of designer paper. If you guys get any of our half packs, some of them come with just 6 sheets. You could grab one of those. It's going to give you the same 2 sheets of 3 prints. Grab a couple sheets of cardstock, replicate these cuts, and create your own set using a different collection. So pretty basic. So I would keep this project recipe in your binder as one when you're kind of going back to the basics for layouts that you really can't fit a lot of photos on if you don't use the mats as they show them.
All right. So I do see there. Sorry, I actually hit the button. I do see a question about the project recipe. Directions were in the project recipe kit. That was a separate product from Creative Memories. It was included in the customer bundle, and that customer bundle that had the project recipe, had the accessory paper pack, had the cardstock bundle or sampler, included the project booklet. So if you did not order the project booklet, you may not have or if you did not order the customer bundle, you may not have the project booklet. You can reach out to your advisor. They may be able to get you an extra copy, or you can order the customer bundle to get those directions. We do not have a digital copy of it to be able to send out with our email. So that's why in our class, we did recommend that you buy the customer bundle, then you would have the project booklet to be able to put those together. Tessa had a great thing about telling you could use these layouts again. I am very quickly going to show you just what I did with it. I just swapped the papers around, okay? Because I'm going to switch my thing and just show you, and we'll give you details on how to do this if you wanted to. So before I jump into that, spread 1, if you changed your paper colors, I cut different papers. I was trying to minimize the owls. I did the same thing with this NSD where we minimized the lemons just by using the back side. Really what happened here is they gave us really what I thought was a lovely stripe that we never got to use. So this just shows that you can, even within the project recipe, you could swap some papers around. We'll make sure you guys get the details. I'll make it's all the same cuts. The only difference is I cut different papers. And I did on mine, cut out the back for that U shape so that you can get extra pieces for mats. So that's an alternative option with the project recipe itself. Minimizes the owls just a little bit. But now we're going to jump in to the project booklet. I have very, very minor things that are just suggestions. No major, we didn't really find any significant issues with the cutting guide this time. I think at NSD, there may have been one little correction that we found that worked better, maybe, or clarification. Couple of things I did highlight here. We have to make sure we pay attention to the direction of our paper on pieces 6, 7, and 8. And the other thing was, and I'll come to it here, the size that they tell us of photo that fits into this laser cut frame, this bottom picture uses a different size, and I'll give you that adjustment so you can write it down before you crop your photo to put into it. You'll want to make sure you use the correct size, or just double check with your ruler before you cut your photos to go under these laser cut mats. So we're going to do all of the cutting first. You're going to want to make sure you have your decorative trimmer. You can see we have a couple of areas we're going to use the decorative trimmer. We are going to have our custom cutting system. We're going to make some circles. We need the medium circle, which is circle number 2. And we're going to need our blue blade, which I suppose I should probably have out, our blue blade. So you want to have that available. And of course, then we're going to need just our regular trimmer. If you have the owl punch, Tessa is going to walk us through how to make the owl. She's now an owl expert. She loves the birds, so I thought I would let her show you guys how and about the most efficient way possible to make those the various owls, because you do have quite a few of them that you'll make. So when you have your scrap pieces, you're going to want to kind of keep track of those, because she'll come back and have you show you how to make those owls. All right. So to start off with, we're going to cut these in order. So we'll start off with some navy cardstock. There are mats in here. You may or may not want to cut those mats. The oatmeal cardstock, you have 2 pieces of oatmeal cardstock. One is the base of a layout. One is mats. Everybody's loving this medium brown color, this nice tan. So if you want to save that to make your mats later, you certainly can. If you're wanting to kind of hoard your oatmeal, I will show you how we can pull out some oatmeal from one of the layouts here so that we can, I don't know, have some more oatmeal to work with, right? We all love oatmeal. So yes, we will be able to do that. And all right, so we're going to start it. I'm going to grab some navy. You have 2 sheets of navy in your sampler pack. We're going to cut both of them. So let me just kind of grab my trimmer. We're going to cut out, the first thing we need to do is cut out a 10 by 10 square. Navy is, I think technically it's a little bit closer to 12 and 1/8 as compared to like a 12 by 12. So my recommend with this navy cardstock is, instead of just cutting off 2 inches, we're going to come over here and actually measure the 10 inches. That way we know we get a 10-inch square. So I'm going to line that up at 10 inches and I'm going to cut. This piece, they tell us is scrap. We don't have to do anything with that. You can just set it off to the side. And I'll come back and cut that second side to 10 inches. This shorter piece, they want to set aside for owls. We keep our 12-inch piece. We keep that at 12-inch length, but this shorter length we're going to use for owls. So I'm going to actually kind of just create a pile of scraps that we'll be able to use for owls. So here's my 10 by 10 square piece of paper. So that's piece number A. And I am just going to kind of put all my pieces to the side. If you want to kind of keep them maybe by, like, I could put all my navy pieces together. That might be helpful for you. They don't exactly tell us what piece goes to which of the layouts. So it might be easiest to sort them just by their colors. And then you'll be able to come back to that when it's time to put everything together. All right, the second piece of navy. We're going to be B and C are mats. So if you don't normally cut your mats, we just talked about that. If you normally wait to cut your mats, you can cut D, E, and F, and then just save that segment, or cut off a 4-inch segment and know you have some 4x6s or mats to make 4x6 mats, or, you know, however you need. I'm going to go ahead and do all of the mats, everything that they have here. But B and C, if you want to write on here, you could write on here that they're mats, so that you know you may not necessarily want to cut them right away. My mats, I will take all of the pieces that are mats. I am going to put the mats all in one spot. Next up, out of my piece here, I need to cut 2 3 by 12-inch pieces. These are actually, I believe, used in the borders. So if you're not going to make the borders, but you could wait on those, we'll make the borders as part of class. The 3x12. These are D and E. I just want to confirm. I think D and E. Yes, D and E. These are the border backgrounds. And here we have a little piece left that we're going to grab our decorative trimmer. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to use our swell edge, which is the more gentle. This is our swell. This is the wavy. We're going to use the swell. And we're going to go ahead and cut a 3/4 inch strip with the swell edge. So to do this, you want to do it however is comfortable for you. What I generally find is I need to go ahead and establish my swell edge, and I'm going to do that on the right edge of my paper. So I have fed this into my trimmer so that I'm basically on that first solid line that clears the swell to the right of the swell. So I'm coming out here like such. You see, there's my swell. I'm going to come out here to this solid line. The reason I picked the solid line that goes all the way down is because I can make sure it's straight. Right? I could just come out and just barely clear it, but I'm going to go all the way to that edge. That just allows me to make sure everything's nice and straight. Hold it in place. I can grab it with my fingers on that inside edge right here and put my fingers in there. And then I'll come in with my blade and go ahead and give that a cut. And I'm establishing the swell edge. Now, this next piece gets to be a little interesting. I need to make this 3/4 of an inch wide. Okay. 3/4 of an inch wide. Remember, each one of these squares is 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to come out 3 squares to the right of my cut groove there. So 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to push out so that my edge is there at 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to follow that down all the way down. So I have a peak here that's going to touch that line, and then down here at the bottom too, I need to make sure it's 3 squares to the right of my cut line. I'm going to hold it over here on this side and cut. So there is my 3/4 inch swell piece. This goes with your border. So if you have the border pieces, those 3-inch border pieces, I'm going to put that with those. This is scrap. If you want to, you can save these pieces, easily attach these to another piece of scrap, and you have a nice little line there if you wanted to. They don't necessarily have to go straight into the recycle bin. All right, we're going to set aside the decorative trimmer just for a moment. It doesn't need to go too far because we see here with our hot fudge, we're going to need it again. So hot fudge, we're going to cut a large mat. We'll have some scrap pieces down here, a small piece, some scrap for our owls, a swell cut, and then we'll cut some circles. If you're working with the full piece here, one of the things I wanted to do to make a suggestion, as Tess and I were working through, as she made her variations, I was working through it. One of the things I added on the layouts here is I added thin strips of hot fudge cardstock at the top of this layout. I just thought it gave a little bit a separation. You see that Tessa had some additional strips in hers. I just went real quick with it, added a 1/4 inch strip. And I did that because I had plenty of leftover hot fudge. So when we cut this, I have a note here. I'm going to cut 2 1/4 inch strips that are the 12-inch length. You don't have to. I'm going to do that simply because I liked the way that it looked, kind of top off and give separation between that baby blue down into the owl paper. All right, so hot fudge. Fall is always the time of year I go through a lot of hot fudge paper. The first thing we're going to do, I probably did, yeah, I do. We're going to bring this out. I'm going to cut here at 5 inches. I am cutting a mat. This is kind of a big chunky mat that gets a sub mat with it, but we'll cut this at 5 inches. I'm going to rotate it and cut it at 7 inches. This is piece G. From this piece, I need piece H, which is 3 inches wide by 1.5 inches tall. So the first cut I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this at 3 inches. I'm going to cut it 3 inches wide. This piece right here goes into our owl grouping. All right. Then we're going to go ahead, rotate this 3-inch wide piece and cut it at 1.5. Whenever I'm doing 1.5, I usually come to the right of my trimmer over here, slide it over, hit that 1.5-inch mark and give it a cut. This small piece is going to come over into my piece pile. That's piece H. This piece here is scrap. So just put it in your scrap pile. All right. Now I'm back here to my big piece of paper. I have plenty of room to make my swell. I've got my circle. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those 2 1/4-inch strips that I mentioned before. 2 1/4-inch. So 2 of them at 1/4 inch was just to that gray edge, the right edge of my gray trimming mat. That's about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to cut 2 of those. You don't have to do this. This was just kind of an alternate, you know, a little addition. Now from this piece, we're going to grab our decorative trimmer. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before to make our swell. We made a 3/4-inch swell cut. This time we're going to do a 1-inch swell cut. So again, I'm going to feed this in, coming out to that first solid line to the right of that swell edge and establish my swell cut. All right, so this time I need a 1-inch piece, which is 4 of those squares. So it's actually going to come out all the way flush with the edge of my trimmer, the right edge of my trimmer. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring that flush. Just check your pieces here. We want to make sure everything, you know, top and bottom are flush with that edge, and go ahead and cut. There's my swell. Now this piece is where I'm going to go ahead and I need to cut 5 circles with the medium circle, which is circle number 2. You can put your decorative trimmer away. I'm going to grab my cutting mat. Grab my cutting mat, clear out a nice flat space, and I'll go ahead and make those circles. So we need the blue blade, medium circle, inside track. And you need 5 of the circles. I did a terrible job there. That's not a usable circle. I'll have to cut. I've got a little too aggressive with my overlap. So there's 4 of my circles. I'm going to come back to that scrap rather than cutting into this piece over here, because it just gives me that. I'll come in and grab it from this piece. My other option, I could come back to my mat, right? I could cut a circle out of the middle of my mat. It gets covered up. I'm not going to necessarily do that, but if you are looking for places to grab background pieces of the middle of mats work really well. Okay. So there's my 5 circles. These are going to be used with the border. So if you've been keeping track of any of your border pieces, you can put it with the border. I'm going to set my circle and my blade aside for the moment, not too far. We're going to come back to it again here in just a few minutes. Paper number 6 is going to use a circle again. But that is all of our pieces that we needed out of our hot fudge cardstock. So next up is going to be our oatmeal. And again, these are all mats. If you are not ready to cut your mats, they are actually the mats that get used with our laser cut layouts. Here's our 3 mats, and then we have 2 additional mats over here. So you might want to wait until you're ready to put your photos on your laser cut paper. 1, you'll know the size, and 2, maybe that oatmeal won't be the right color. I mean, you can kind of just figure it out at that point. I will go ahead and cut them so that you guys can see what they look like. So we're going to have 4 4x6 mats and 1 4x4. I think we all should send in a note to create a memory that we need a wonderful light brown that's just a little bit darker than beige. This kind of this medium tone brown is great, a tan. We've had some in the past. It would just be nice to have that. So here's my 4 4x6 mats. This piece here, I'm going to cut a 4x4. So I have a total of 5 mats that I've cut from oatmeal. And then this piece, it says it wants us to save that for the owls. So it goes into my owl pile. All right, so that's our first page of cuts. Next, we're going to start diving into our designer paper. So far, we've only cut cardstock. Next up is going to be, we're going to start going into our designer paper. So here's where we want to, this first piece of paper, it doesn't matter for the direction, but pieces 6, 7, and 8, you are going to want to make sure you're paying attention to the direction. So we'll spend a little bit of extra time, making sure we emphasize that when we cut it. But the first piece, designer piece number 5, it does not matter. Both sides of this piece of paper are non-directional, or mostly non-directional. So we're going to start off with some 3-inch squares. So we'll cut this first strip at 3 inches and then cut 3-inch squares. I'm going to put all of my 3-inch squares in one spot. They all go to one particular layout. So just keep track of all your 3-inch squares in one place. Those are pieces P, Q, R, and S. Next up is pieces T and U. So they are 1/2 inch each, the full 12 inches. So 1 and 1/2 inches. Again, coming here to the right side of my cutting line, measuring out to 1.5 inches. These are actually the pieces, I think they go with that horizontal stripe layout, so like the second layout in this booklet. Next up, we need to cut a 4.5 by 6.5 inch, it's going to be a mat. So 4.5 by 6.5. So we'll come out here to 4.5 inches wide. This piece right here, they want us to save to punch some owls. So it's going to go in my owl punching pile. This is at 4.5. I'm going to rotate it and cut at 6.5. This is a nice big chunky mat for a 4x6 image. I'm going to put it up in my mat pile. This piece is left over. Again, we see they want us to punch owls. Next up is going to be our tan tree paper. This one, they say rotate the paper. We can see that our trees are all pointing to the left. The top edge of our paper is over here on the left side. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to cut two 4-inch pieces. W and Z are 4 inches wide by 12. Rotate your paper. Your trees are to the side. This particular layout needs these bars will actually be rotated horizontally. You can see here, this is therefore this layout, we want to make sure our trees, the top of our trees are going up and down. So make sure you've taken the time to rotate. Top of your trees is off here to the left. And we're going to cut it 4 inches. There's the first one, that's W. Another 4-inch piece at X. Now this last piece that we have here should still be 4 inches. We're going to cut 2 half-inch strips. It does not matter which side we cut them from. I'm going to go ahead and cut them from this, the right-hand side here. 1/2 inch is that first solid line on the solid black line on the trimmer. We'll cut 2 of those. Put those together. I don't even... Oh, those are for, they become the horizontal bar or the vertical bars here. Because I tried to remember which layout they went to. Left, this piece that we have left, we should be able to rotate it. It should be 3 inches wide. Double check that it's 3 inches wide. Yep, I'm about 3 inches wide. We're going to make some 3x3 squares. We need 2 of those 3x3 squares. There's one. I'm putting it over with my other 3x3 squares. My second one. Now, this last little piece, we're going to make our final circle. I'm going to come up here to the top with my blue blade, circle number 2, and I'm going to go ahead and make that cut or make that circle. I'm going to put it with my other circles. This is going to be used to make owls. So it gives them my owl cutting pile. All right, so that was piece number 6. Next up, we're going to cut the 2 ivory tree papers. We'll start off with the first one. Again, we see that they tell us to rotate the paper. The top of our paper is over here to the left side when we're cutting designer paper number 7. You want to make sure that you can see I have a lot of trees here. I don't have as many trees here. They recommend that we cut it from this side so that our little 3x3 squares all have a little bit of that tree into them. Whereas, and then we'll have this area right here to be able to punch some owls from it. So here's the top edge of my trees. I'm going to go ahead and trim this at 3 inches. I'm cutting 3x3 squares again. Stack all those up, put them with the other 3x3 squares. I'm going to go ahead and cut once again with the 3 at 3 inches. This time I only need 2 3x3 squares. After I cut those 2 3x3 squares, this piece right here, they tell us is scrap. I'll put it to the scrap pile. Now here I need 2 1.5-inch strips. I want to go ahead and make these strips from their recommended location. So if I I just want to make sure I cut where I see the trees are still thick in here rather than trimming 1.5 inches from this side. So you can rotate your paper around. I'm going to go ahead. I'll just cut it from this side this time. I'm lined up here at 1.5 inches. And I'll come in and do a second one at 1.5 inches. I need 2 of those 1.5 inches. This piece here is all for owls. So goes into your owl punching pile. All right, we just have 2 strips left to do. We still have LL and MM with this last piece of our paper. So we're gonna go ahead and the top edge, once again, here's the top of my trees. I'm gonna rotate it to the left and I'm gonna cut 2.5 inches off the top of my paper. I'm gonna do that twice. So I need 2 2.5 inch strips. These are gonna be used for the borders. Pretty certain these are for the borders. This piece right here, we have a nice big chunky piece left. You could use it for mats, you could use it for another project. The other side is the owls. So this is a big piece of scrap that you have left over. You can put it with your other scraps and just set those all to the side. All right, I would say put away your trimmer, but I actually want you to hold on to it just for a second. Okay, so our first thing that we're going to do is we need to create our first 2-page spread. Like I said, keep that trimmer close by. Our 2-page spread for project number 1, we're going to have a piece of oatmeal cardstock and a piece of hot fudge cardstock. So you want to grab those out of your sampler. Here's my hot fudge. Here's my oatmeal. Okay, so you can see right now, they want us to put on the oatmeal cardstock, they want us to come in with that 10-inch square and put that right over the middle, right? Okay, so I am covering up so much of the really pretty oatmeal color that if you want to, you can take and go ahead and cut out a 1.5 inch frame. Okay. That's going to leave you with a 9-inch piece of oatmeal cardstock that you'll be able to use for mats or for another project. Let me quickly just show you what I did with it because it was super easy to do. One little minor adjustment. I just used it to create a really chunky mat over here, pulling that oatmeal over to the second side and letting those dark navy cardstocks pop off the hot fudge just a little bit more. So totally an optional step. I am going to walk you through really quickly how to cut out that frame out of the middle so that if you want to have that piece of hot fudge, or excuse me, the piece of oatmeal for this versus the back, but that is simply a way to do it. You can totally ignore this step if you don't want to. If you don't want to mess with cutting out a frame. We're going to do that 1.5 inch frame. So 1.5 inches, I'll bring my paper down to 1.5. You want to set your binder clips, you definitely can. I'm going to line up that wide edge of my blade housing at 1.5 inches and set my binder clip. I'll do the same thing on the other end. I'm going to set it at 10.5 inches, set that binder clip to the left side. Double check that my paper is where I want it, and I'm just going to cut from clip to clip. Rotate and keep doing that. Just set it at that 1.5 inches and clip to clip. You can skip this step if you don't want to try to conserve paper. Okay. So there I have one little piece that didn't get cut all the way through. Go ahead and use my scissors. There, I got that chunky oatmeal, or that piece of oatmeal if I want to save it to make some mats. All right, I think at this point, that was all of my adjustments. So you can put your trimmer away. Now we're gonna put together this layout. I've got my 10-inch navy square. I'm gonna go ahead and put my oatmeal frame on my cutting mat. And then we will attach this. So do you guys do that? Do you flip your card stuff over and you're kind of like, why? I'm going to attach some adhesive on the very outside edge of my mat. That 1.5 inches, you should have plenty of overlap. But do try to keep it to the outside edge, just to make sure. And I want it to be, it should be a 1 inch all the way around. So if you want to use your ruler, you can grab your T-square, anything to double check that you're at your 1 inch. It sometimes is nice. There it is. I knew I had a ruler out here. I'm at 1 inch there, inch there. I did pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with myself. Yep, I'm about maybe a little high, but I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, I've got that all centered. Next up is you're going to grab your 3-inch square pieces. And they show us here in the directions, we can see how this is all laid out. So we have some branch paper, we have some blue, and then we have owls, which is the opposite side of the tree paper. Coming down here, we're going to grab one of our tan fir trees. The open space here is just navy. It actually gets covered up with photos. We'll have the owls in the lower left-hand corner. Their owls are opposite and the trees are opposite. Pay attention to your trees. They do have a little bit of a direction to them. You want to just, the birch trees, I think they're birch. And then the middle here again is the blue. These other pieces we're going to save for the second page. Okay, so for these, we have a 10-inch navy piece. We have 3-inch pieces here. So that's 9 inches. Our overall frame all the way around of navy that we should see is 1/2 inch. All right. So we want to take a little bit of time and make sure you place your first piece. Grab your ruler. We're going to start. Our pieces should start, assuming we line this up at 1 inch. The edge of our navy is at 1 inch. We want to come in here at, should be 1/2 inch. My pieces might be a little bit bigger. It looks like it's just a little bit more than 1/4 inch. I think what the thing is, if I get down to this nitty gritty, my 3-inch pieces might be, I don't know. You want them to be centered. That's probably the biggest takeaway here. And oh, okay, I see my issue. I cut this paper wrong. I cut these blue squares. I cut them wrong, so I'm going to have some issues. I was trying to figure out what's going on here. My blue squares, I somehow managed to cut them at 3 1/4. Things were not lining up right. So I'm going to go ahead and trim these back down to 3 1/4. Or back to 3 inches. I was like, something was not adding up. I was doing too much talking and not enough measuring. We'll figure out where my issue is later. Okay, this should work much better now. Yeah, okay. We have a 1/2 inch all the way around. That's much, much better because it should be. So I should be able to place my ruler or my T-square at 1.5 inch from the left hand. And I should be able to come down 1.5 inch from the top and from the, or and up from the bottom and place that first piece. Use some repositionable adhesive if you're most comfortable with that. There was some really pretty striped paper in here. I do like it. If you guys, the opposite side of this tree paper has a really lovely kind of a blue and brown and tan piece there. Really what you want to focus on is you want to make sure your outside edges are lined up and your seams. This area here is all going to be covered up with photos. Oops. I did not. Well, just do your best. This one's being a little bit more stubborn. It's got putting it together on camera. Sometimes make sure you get your trees and your owls going the correct direction. All right, so there is the piece here. When you do your photos, you'll be able to put 3 square photos on here. They tell us those 4x4 squares, and then you'll be able to come in if you want. You can use the insert to the embellishment pack, and it can go in this lower corner if you want to have a decorative element in here. They have used a piece of cardstock, I think, and just cut a little banner that covers up the fact that it says Croptoberfest. You could probably come in and just put an entire owl there or something else if you wanted to, but then pair it with those other 4x4 photos, or use all 4x4 photos. Now it's time to make the second page. That's our hot fudge, has our hot fudge base. And we're going to start over here on our right edge, and we're going to set one of our thin, we have 2 of those lighter tan strips. We're going to go ahead and set one of those to establish kind of that straight edge that will abut everything else next to. And we're going to do 1/2 inch from the outside edge. That's what they tell us in the directions. I'm going to come over here to 1/2 inch at the top, line it up at 1/2 inch at the bottom. And there we go. And then all of my strips of paper will come in here, are the squares, get adhered in here as such. You want these to be nice, tight seam if you possibly can, because there's really nothing that overlaps. You could probably put that tan piece on last if you wanted to overlap any, cuts that maybe weren't as clean as you'd hope them to be. And then your final strip, it comes in here. All right, so here now is where we're gonna we have a couple of blue, our navy 4x6 mats. And this is where, again, where I told you that I thought the navy kind of blends into the background a little bit. So if you want to, with your oatmeal piece that you have here, this is 9x9. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this. I'm going to do both mats at once. So I'm going to trim this to 6.5 inches wide. Have a 1/4 inch on either side horizontally of the mat. And then I'm going to trim it at 8 3/4. That's going to give me a 1/4 inch above, a 1/4 inch between, and a 1/4 inch below the two mats. And that just gives me a little bit of that oatmeal, bringing that over. This slides under. I think my mats, I don't know, I cut something. These are 6. So I cut this a little short. My oatmeal mat. But you get the idea. It would go in there as such. Now here is where we're going to go ahead. They do want us to have the embellishment that we put here. You're going to start working with your embellishments. I think we use some things out of the embellishment, the mini pack, and you still want to come back to your stickers. So wherever you have your stickers, you're going to want to grab. And this one, I'm almost positive we use this little guy off of our sticker pack. And you're going to want to take your, one of your scraps of your brown cardstock here, and you're going to want to use your owl, and you're going to go ahead and punch. And when you punch the owl, you're going to want to make sure you save all those pieces. So I've got a beak, the 2 pieces that make the eye, and one of my wing. What I need for this particular layout is I need just the owl body. But these pieces I am going to save. I'm going to set those to the side. You're probably going to want to have a safe little spot to put all those small pieces. And this little guy, you're going to use this banner here, Happy Days Are Here. I found it easiest to go ahead and put this cute little owl on top. His feet sit on right on top. I centered him right over that happy day of the days. And now I can go ahead and bring him and get that shadow of that owl behind him. All right. So there we go. He's a little crooked, but you kind of get the idea. And then he gets put on here. You are going to want, oops, that's an embellishment pack I've already opened. There is this tag. You'll want the tag. And then that just sits on top, covers up the tag, and then there's a little blue, the blue sticker. I think it was a stick. No, it was an embellishment. This blue heart is an embellishment. So embellishment, embellishment. This is the punch, the brown, and then sticker and sticker. And the other side here, you would use that little square mat. So that's the embellishments for that layout. All right. So that is layout number 1 from the booklet. All right, so next up is project 2. This is where Tessa and I both agreed because we're just not super big fans of the tangerine cardstock. You can use whatever color you want. If you want to go ahead and use the tangerine, if you want to use we thought the baby blue out of the pack was lovely. So that's what we ended up using. And that's what I'm going to use to put together. You don't use the baby blue in any other project. So this is a good swap. So both pages actually go together the same. You can see here, we're going to stack the blue, the tan trees, and the owls. They just start at the bottom, work our way up. So I'm just going to go ahead and start just one by one. I'll make them each page separately. We'll get the background pieces put on, and then we will talk about the other pieces. So here we go. You can, of course, adjust the colors. I mean, the which side you use. I am going to just stick with the side they give us. But if you really wanted to use more of the plaid versus the leaves, you've got. I mean, the trees maybe are a little too muted. The other side of this is some horizontal stripes, so that could have been an option. I do see a question about the adhesive that I use when I use regular versus repo. To me, repo sticks well enough that you can use either one. I would say anything that's super heavy is going to probably use regular adhesive, but I have a tendency just to always default to grab repo adhesive. I have yet to have anything with a repositionable adhesive fall off. That it wasn't heavy or that I didn't use enough. I mean, sometimes you just don't get enough adhesive on. My owls go at the top. And here's where I make that little adjustment. I come in and I've got that small little bar. See, I just thought that, I mean, this just kind of fades into it. And I thought it would be nice to have just that little topper piece there. You can have it on there. You can not have it on there. You could punch a border to go across there. You could do it however you wanted. I will go ahead and put this into place. Here, I'm going to use repositionable adhesive because it's fairly narrow. I could also use my mini tape runner. And it just sits right along the top edge of that owl paper. The second page goes together the exact same way. Make sure your trees are going the right direction. And then here, add the owls, and then we'll top it off with that thin. Now, the left page of this layout has the laser cut paper. And I am not going to open a second pack of laser cut. So I'll show you what I did here. Okay, so here's the laser cut paper. It has the tree, has the two pieces here, and it has the leaves attached. I added just a cute, I thought it was room for more photos, right? I like to put on more photos. Wherever I can add photos, I sometimes will. You would have to use additional cardstock, but this piece right here is a 4x4-inch mat that if you wanted to add, or you could add some journal paper here if you wanted to journal. So you could definitely do that here. This photo right here is the one, if you have a pencil or a pen, I want you to go to your layout here. This opening, they tell us it's 4.5 by 3.25. It is not. It is 4 5/8. And yes, that 1/8 of an inch makes a difference. If you cut it to 4.5, you will have a little bit showing on each side. That 4 5/8 is really, truly just your opening to opening. Okay, so you actually want to probably go 4 3/4 inches wide when you cut your photo. Okay, and the 3.5 or 3.25 inches tall was truly opening to opening. So I would probably go closer to 4 3/4 by 3.5, just knowing that your edges at that point are going to be covered up a little bit. This up here, they have it sized to a 4 by 6, which is truly the opening is a 4 by 6. So your photo is going to feel like it just sits in there. I mean, I can still lift, trying to get a 4 by 6 to fit in there. You're going to want to make sure you have a true 4 by 6. That's pretty much what that works there. But it came together really simple. You just put those pieces down. I wouldn't necessarily put the laser cuts in place until you have your photos that you know are going in there. And like I said, I added, this is one of the little owl embellishments. He was actually sitting on the second page. The second page, they have us coming in with that big mat here, and then coming in with that small piece, or that smaller mat. Okay, that smaller mat here. So you could put a 4 by 6 on there. They had it actually where they had the lighter blue, but you can of course switch it if you want to. Let me show you just real quickly. They had a couple of photos without mats. I thought that was a lot of space. You can come in and just add more photos, right? Make it work for you. I just adjusted where some of the embellishments went. I had an extra piece. Remember, we have an extra piece over here. They're totally doing landscaping outside my window. I got to stop scheduling stuff on Thursday mornings. So here is, you can see how that could go together. Just some options.
If someone's following you right now, they don't want to adhere that mat yet because you're going to want owls out of it. So if you're following her exactly, don't adhere that leafy mat yet.
This one?
Yeah, the inside can be owl pieces before you adhere it, because you'll cover the insides with your photo.
Yes. So you could probably, yeah, you can, if you want to use this, you could cut. You do have some left over in your owl scrap if you don't want to, but yes, this you could definitely cut owls out of before you adhere any photos to it. So keep that in mind. So I think that was, yeah, that's both of the layouts there. That's project number 2. So next up, these 2 layouts come together very, very quickly. These next 2 pieces, if you have the laser cuts. If you do not have the laser cut and you were going to do Tessa's, you may be going off in a completely different direction, but I'm going to show you. We're going to start with the first one, which is, we have the blue plaid paper left. That's one of our full sheets of designer paper. And then we're going to grab our tree laser cut piece. And that's what it looks like with the white. I mean, you can mix and match. You could, if you wanted, if your colors go better where you could have the blue behind it. If you really wanted to, maybe that matches your photos better. You could go with the brown and the blue, but obviously the brown with the lighter blue is a little bit more striking. There is an owl over here on this side. And so that lighter tan circle that we cut, this is going to sit in here behind that owl, and it looks like the moon. And just kind of let that owl stand out. And then you'll come in with your oatmeal mats, or maybe a different color of mats, and they just have them lined up in here, however that works for you. I am not going to adhere them until like this page for me, because I don't know for sure what I'm going to use this with. I may just like wait to put it all together and just kind of tuck those pieces in, because maybe I'll need to use the other side. But this is how it would go together. They have a embellishment that says it's owl good. And then coming down here, you'll have an owl that Tessa will show you how to put together, along with one of the embellishment tags that you could use for some journaling. So literally goes together lickety split. The second layout uses the leaf with the tree rings, or the log circles. For this one, they actually want us to come in and they want us to trim off 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And if you're like me, you're saying, oh, be still my heart. And you're putting it on the tan paper. So you could come in and frame it out or to have the piece on there. You could leave it flush like this, but it does, I agree that if you're going to use this way, I would cut off 1/4 of an inch all the way around. The opposite side, you can make some adjustments if you want. You could come in and use it's kind of pretty with the stripe behind it too, just a little bit of a different look, may depend on your photos. They have us putting some photos here, some 4x4 photos in here. You'll want to cut those with the circle number 1. 4-inch photos, you use circle number 1, which is the smallest circle. You use the red blade outside track, and that's what you're going to use to cut the circles. They'll map behind this. So if you are putting this together without your photos, you don't want to use a lot. You want to be able to slide those photos in still. So make sure you leave space for that. And then they do have the little piece here where you would add some more owls. They have this cute little embellishment guy, this little cute little owl, and then they come in with this heart that says, "Owl you need is love." We should have 2 oatmeal mats left, and you can put those together, and that is how that laser piece. There's more spaces to journal, some additional little pieces. We use the striped heart, and there's a heart sticker, and there still is some leftover pieces that you'll be able to work in. You can come in with maybe a feather. There's a couple feathers left, depending on how you want to work those pieces. So lots of options. Actually, probably get used. They get used on the next page. I forgot about the borders. Can't forget about the borders. Okay. Gotta love laser cut papers. It's almost like instant glory when you're putting them on just a piece of paper. It really quick statement pages to get things going. Okay, so the borders. We're gonna go back here. We have some navy bases. We have 2 navy bases. These are 3 inches each. We've got our hot fudge circles. We should have 5 of them, if I haven't lost any. We have 2 of the this trees paper. One side is going to be the owls. The other side we will leave as the branches. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere these pieces. They just get applied right down the middle. So you have about 1/4 of an inch on top and bottom. Tessa, how many owls have you made so far?
I made 14.
14 of them.
I didn't really have many scraps left after I got. Once you get going and you have all the pieces, it's hard not to just use all of the scraps to make as many owls as you can left.
Yeah, you're in the owl groove. You might as well just keep going.
And it's a hootin' good time. So
it's a hootin' good time. Okay, so now we should have our 2. We have a small piece of the hot fudge. That's going to come in here. It's like we're creating a branch. Now, if you have the branch punch, maybe you're going to go ahead and just use that. But if you don't have the branch punch, you can use use this little piece here. The navy is a little bit long, so I am lining everything up along the right or the left edge, and I'll trim on my right edge. That navy cardstock is just a little bit long. And then I'm going to come in, add my tree trunk to the left side. And then they do suggest, you can kind of barely see it in there. If you can kind of see that detail, they have done some inking detail with a brown or a black. You might need to practice and see what color is showing. Probably what we could have done is before I adhered these, I probably should have practiced to see how I liked my wood striping capabilities. You don't necessarily have to, but you can. This bottom piece or this bottom border, the circle in the middle goes behind. The other circle, well, they alternate. So this first circle, the middle circle, and the last circle are all underneath our border. And these circles are on top. So it just kind of gives that illusion of depth. Kind of a fun little option. It's really hard for you to see on the video, but you can see they do alternate. And then it's Owlpalooza. Is Tessa ready for Owlpalooza over there?
I have to unmute, but yes.
All right, I'm gonna pass you guys over to Tessa to put to start chomping some or punching some owls. She'll show you all the great ways to put those together.
I have to start my video back up.
Yeah, I'm just seeing. I was like, where is your desk?
Like where is my phone? I forgot. I have to find myself on here. When you turn your camera off, it dumps you. There I am. Dumps you down into all of you watching that don't have your video on. Okay.
All right, I see it now.
Okay.
There you go.
There I am. Okay. So the owls get to be pretty fun. So the layout Megan just did with the laser paper. This is mine without it. And this is the piece where if you use a branch punch, or you can cut thinner strips like she just cut for the border, you can just do a little bit of a swell to sit your owls on. So depending on how much space you could fit owls there, you can really fit owls anywhere in your layouts if you want to. And I lied, I actually made 15 owls. So here's 3 of them. You can see they all have different bases, different eyes. We're going to talk about the variety. And then I had 10. So I had adapted the border concept into this 2-page layout. So I maintained the circles, like just kind of doubled one of the borders. So I had 10 there. So we're going to work on how you approach the owls. If you're going to make one owl, you end up having to make several because you have to get different parts from each piece of paper. So I'm going to show you my tools. If you don't have them exactly, find as similar as you can. So you can use the cutting mat. If you have the silicone mat, it's even better because it will hold those little pieces a little bit more in place. It's not necessarily sticky, but it has more grip. If you have reversible tweezers or other tweezers, those are helpful. You will for sure want to use your precision point adhesive. You could probably try to use Repo. It's just going to be, it's so micro that the liquid is best. If you have the lifter stick, I know they've been given as gifts a couple of times. That is very helpful. So first I've used it, and then I have scissors as always, just to be at the ready. So if you are doing my version of the layouts, there's very little scraps left. So I don't have much left to show how the owl. So I'm pulling together different pieces. I won't have the exact same pieces. So I have some hot fudge, I have some oatmeal, and Megan, as a reminder, I think we both forgot that they said oatmeal was coming in October too. The sampler was just where you could get it first, but we should see oatmeal coming back in October. And then navy. So I have kind of those 3 cardstock colors. I have one of the mats I cut out from underneath. So I have that stripe and I have the brown. I have the owl print. I have the blue. And I went ahead and got a big, and I have to get a new sheet because I don't really have any other blue. So, and then we have the owl punch. So you have to build your owls. On your first punch, you're going to get the base of the owl, and you're going to get 1 wing, 1 eye, 1 pupil, so to speak, and 1 nose. And all of those are pretty tiny pieces. I'm going to punch this one out. The lifter stick, if you have it, really is best. The lifter stick kind of picks up each piece. If you don't have the lifter stick, the little reversible tweezers, or else hopefully you have longer nails. So I'm going to kind of start making piles on my mat basically my assembly line of the pieces. I'm gonna put the noses in a spot. I'm gonna put the wings. I have the smaller eye, and then I have the larger eye. The challenge with the wings is that you have to have a reverse image to do it. This is a mat. So if you did my layout, or in Meggan's, if you have a mat, you can use the inside of the mat for owl pieces because you will cover it with your photo later. You just have to make sure that you are punching all the way into the paper. So I'm gonna use this one. And then if I want to get this reverse wing, so I have one wing now, I could sit on this one. I have to flip the paper or the punch to get those pieces to get the reverse wing. So every owl, you have to punch front and back to get the wings to match to go the same way. I'll punch upside down. So that gives me that reverse mirror image owl wing that can go on that one. My nose is over here. Like a little assembly line. So I'm going to go through and just punch some various colors. I do have some oatmeal. You can get creative with your scraps too. So like this piece, you don't have room to get an owl body out, but you don't need as many owl bodies as you need pieces. And so when you have pieces like this, the edges, you can just stick the edge of that into the back of the punch and just get yourself the wing and the two eyes. It's not even that big of a deal if you can get your nose out of it. But you're going to start squeezing owl pieces out of every scrap you have. And so if I wanted to go in again like this, or I could turn this, I want to get in here. This is when you might have to be a little bit strategic, cutting out your scrap so that you can get it into your punch in the direction that you want. And I'll do a hot fudge and I'll start piecing together some owls. On the owls, I like the darker eyes. You're going to start to notice what you like here, but mostly the darker side. So if you have a light and a dark, the dark kind of looks more like a pupil on top of the light color as you kind of start to sort through and look at your pieces. Sort out some wings. The cardstock are nice for wings because you don't have to worry about getting those mirror images. This is the most time you could probably spend as much time making owls as you did on all of the rest of the layout. So if you are watching a movie or a show, I think that's what I was doing. I'm not sure what I was watching. The kids have been watching Big Brother, which I don't really like, but somehow I managed to get into it because they're watching it. And then I'm like, well, Cooper, can you rewind that? I didn't hear what they say. I think it's one of the trashiest shows, but the kids have it on and I'm making owls. Suddenly I'm like intrigued by it. Okay, and then my little noses. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through and plop out wings, and then I can see what I need to punch. And then you can start working on your eyes too. So the light have to go onto the dark, or the opposite, the dark onto the light if you can. You can kind of look at both sides. So that owl print, the back side of that is light, so that makes good eyes. So I just pieced mine together before I really ever started hearing. So I could kind of get an idea of what I have, what I like. And then as I got a little bit more comfortable with it, I had here as I went, maybe that's too light on there. I might put these on there. It really can be a hodgepodge of whatever. Where will your colors show up best? And then you have to go back to your scraps and start getting the pieces that you need. I'll put the dark brown up there. As you can see, I'm gonna be kind of short on my wings, so I need to get a brown for the other eye. I'm gonna get my pieces for this one. I'll start piecing it together, and I need the light inside for that one. Okay, so I'm gonna start piecing this one together. So I gotta make sure I have my adhesive primed. And I'm gonna put dots on my owl where I want those eyes to sit. And then whether you're using the tweezers, your fingers, or the lifter tool, kind of lift it up and sit it on top of the glue. The precision point, it is pretty permanent once it dries. Once it dries, you're not moving those eyes around. It doesn't take very long. Just give it a second. So I usually let it dry before I do the layering. Go ahead and put the wings on. And I know I need a nose kind of right down there in the middle somewhere. I probably need a dark brown one so it shows up on this light print. The little triangle noses. And if you put it down, you don't like it, you can always use the tips of your tweezers too to kind of move it around. On top of that liquid, it's going to be a little bit loose for like 10 or 15 seconds. You don't have a ton of time. You have enough time to kind of get it into place where you want it. Okay, these are dry, so I can put my eyes on top of here. You can have your eyes looking straight forward. You can have them looking to the side. I wanted to show you this one because I told you I like the dark on side of the light, but for this print, I needed that dark contrast behind it. So what do I do on top? So I was thinking about it. So here's the one I made him. I can't tell if that's in focus or not, but I just cut these tiny little, basically the pupils. It makes him look like he's wearing glasses. So let's just tiny little scraps of brown and stuck them right there in the middle. So if you have light eyes, it makes them look not quite so creepy if you truly do give them that little bit of a pupil. So I really just like, or even you have all of these, I end up with brown scraps or whatever. Just a little bit of it really gets down into the fussy, tiny blue. Feel like you're playing Operation. I have all my tools, tiny little thing. I always hit the size on that. I never won playing Operation. So you can see those aren't quite the same size. I could probably make one a little bit smaller, but that, if you have light eyes, pick that up and if you can see it. Make sure I see myself. There we go. You can give them the little bit of like pupil look. Mine are crooked and not quite the same size, but you can see where I'm going with that if they have light. Now, if they have dark pupils like this one will have, then I did not add anything additional to that. This really gets into paper crafting. Kind of a whole new level of punches. I'm curious to see if we'll have other build punches coming down the road. We had the build a flower in the secret box. You can make them a little cross-eyed, would be cute. I saw someone to even like, they literally bought googly eyes and plop them down there. Gotta give myself a little bit of blue for the nose. The light would show up on his for his nose. You can see that one has the dark eyes. I would talk, if you want to earn the lifter stick, I would talk to your advisor and find out how they are using it for customer appreciation. It was an advisor only tool. We had it originally back in some other promo that sold out super fast. So then they brought it back to advisors to use for Croptoberfest. I need another brown wing for him. So really, I mean, it truly is mix or match. As long as you have some contrast between your pieces, you can just really make unique owls. Let's see how this one looks with the, I could do oatmeal eyes, or I could do another one with pupils. Maybe I'll do another one with pupils. The noses may even, let's see, like if you punched an extra nose, that's kind of big, but you could. The noses could also be pupils. But then I'd have to punch another, now I have one more. This is when you get into the, I have to keep punching more and more to get the pieces that I want. Has anybody played with the owls? Do you have any other tips you want to share? There's probably things I haven't thought of yet. As of 15 minutes before this call, Megan had not opened her owl punch. I found it amusing. She was going to teach you originally. I'm sure she would have come up with some great techniques on the fly. Doesn't he look like he's wearing glasses? It makes it look like glasses, I think, if you use kind of the pupils.
It was definitely easier to let you teach this. You've got the, if I'm sitting here playing with it, I do agree the lifter stick is super helpful. I am just putting dots in the various places that I want to put my pieces with the adhesive pen. That's working fabulous. I am looking at their owls for examples of combos. And then once I get a feel for the papers and how things work, then I can go in and make some adjustments if I want.
But the funny thing is, it's like I had extra owl pieces and it was like I wanted to keep them. Like, why am I keeping these? They're so little. It's, I mean, you can easily punch more as you go. So you can see how this goes. You can just go deeper and deeper into how many owls you want to make. You know, I have 3 so far and 4 in the works. And I would need to make, you know, twice as many for as many as I need on my layout. So turn on some music, turn on a movie. You can kind of get lost in your thoughts making owls for sure. Are there any questions, other questions overall with about any of the pieces of class, whether it's a project recipe, the bundle, the owls? It definitely was a very layered, in-depth project. hopefully you can find some uses for it. Maybe you want to go back and get some extra. You can buy additional project recipes. You can buy everything in the bundle still, not the laser paper or back. If you want more of just the accessory paper pack, you can't buy that alone. You would need to talk to your advisor, but you can buy more mini embellishments too. Those are available on the website if you need to get, just want to get the quick embellishments and not worry about putting together the owls. So for the wings, I'm just doing it the same way. I'm putting my adhesive where I want them. I get it placed. I'm kind of following that curve, maintaining a little bit of that curve. So it looks like the wing, he has a head sticking out, curved above the wing. I don't love the stripe side of the paper. I didn't use any of that. I think it has too much contrast. But I think I used most of the rest of them. Yeah, have fun playing with those. So this will go up on YouTube probably by this evening. We will send out the link for those of you that sign back up just for easy access to the recording. My adaptation handouts will still be on there. They are, for as far as other product updates, right now they have some organization things on sale this afternoon with Creative Memories, the power sort box, the case and photos. There's also a stamp and storage sale right now. So if you see behind me, the carousels, the pen holder, there's a paper holder sitting behind me. So you're interested in any of the stamp and storage stuff, that is 15% off right now through October 2nd. So this is a pretty long promo for them, and it's free shipping over $150. So it's definitely lots of ways. Creative Memories never fails to give us many ways to spend our money, some of which we have extra of, and sometimes we don't. We all have to make difficult choices at times. So good luck. That's all I can say is good luck prioritizing where you want to put your money, because there are ways for your hobby to take all of it. But I assure you, as I talked to another customer this morning, it is for sure cheaper than real therapy. So a lot of us have traumatic things going on in life. We have illnesses. Maybe you're a caregiver of someone, or your husband's stressed out. We all have to have our own escapes. And I promise you, this is cheaper than paying a psychiatrist. And it's healthier than having to up your meds. So there's your justification for the day, if you need it. So Meggan, anything you want to add? We would love to see your definitely can share these in the ideas group if you want, and you're welcome to hashtag it, maybe like 2023 Croptoberfest. If you want to show us your versions, if you want to show us your owl choices, or whatnot. I will let you see Meggan's face one more time so she can say goodbye to you also.
I'm gonna see it. Say goodbye, I guess.
Well, you can tell them what's next.
Oh, what is next? Oh, Power Hour, like that kind of stuff. Oh, she's nodding her head. See, yeah. Power Hour is going to be on October, I believe it's the 17th, right? October 17th. It's on my regular calendar that I can't pull up quickly. October 17th is going to be the October Power Hour. We will see October 2nd will be the October release for Creative Memories. That's usually when we see the Christmas papers, the Christmas collection come out, and we will see when they release it, whether we may have a page makers. We've had page makers for the past 2 Christmases. So very high chance we will have a page makers class, but we will see what they come out with. And then Tessa and I will negotiate a date that works for both of us. All right. So appreciate you guys all joining in. As Tessa mentioned, we'd love to see what you create. So be sure to share that in the Ideas and Inspiration group with us. And I think that's all I have. So thanks so much for joining us. We'll get the recording out, and always reach out if you have questions. We're happy to answer those as best we can. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.